Good afternoon. I'm Dr. John Martin Petzet, Director of Choral Activities at Louisiana Tech University, and we are using Frank Eychaner's new conducting text. And so we are on the chapter that deals with the conductor's posture and foot position and patterns. And so we're going to talk about what those should be and what they look like. So first of all, we want to find a posture, and I'm going to move this to the side so you can see. But we're trying to find a posture that is very grounded, so that the conductor looks anchored and stout and supported, but looks, I guess, with a sense of normalcy, a relaxed posture. A grounded, relaxed posture is the cornerstone of good conducting and of clarity, which is really what we're after, is conducting clarity. So feet should be generally shoulder width apart. Everyone's body's a little different. Shoulder width apart. The spine should be very balanced. Obviously, we don't want to be leaning in any particular direction. And if the conducting posture is correct, then you can conduct for hours a day and really not fatigue very much at all. So it's important to do this right. Of course, we want to regularly neutralize all tension in the body, and this isn't just a physical idea, this is an emotional idea. It's always just a bad idea to walk into a rehearsal when you're angry or sad or about something, because we tend to take it out on the students. And obviously we don't want to do that. So any attention affects the muscles, affects the mind, and gets in the way, again, of clear thinking and clear communication and clear conducting. So, we don't want to make the players uncomfortable. So a couple of quotes in Dr. Eychaner's book I thought were noteworthy. Number one, a calm and relaxed posture is the key to a lifetime of effective and healthy communication from the podium. And here's another one. Accepting and loving affect from the conductor creates sounds that are rich in tonal depth and emotionally moving. Obviously, this is what we're after with our ensembles. So, preparatory position, feet should be comfortably wide. I like to work in extremes. So, obviously, I wouldn't try to conduct an ensemble like this. I don't look very strong. I'm certainly, I guess in a way I'm balanced, but it just doesn't feel right. And obviously if my feet were right close together, I could kind of conduct like this, but I need to find something that's a little bit more. And what I always do is I have one of my students come up and just sort of push on me. And if my if my feet are too close together, I'll just get knocked over because I just don't have any ability to counterbalance myself. And that's an important part of this. So your feet do not have to be symmetrically the same. A lot of singers perform with one foot kind of 45-degree angle and the other foot is straight out. But just find your position that works with your body makeup so that it works for you. Posture, confident but relaxed. If we get too tall, we look a little tight, and obviously that is not ideal. So we want to be nice and confident but relaxed. Think of the posture you use when you play your own instrument. Even if you're a tuba player and you sit in a chair, you probably don't sit against the back of the chair, and you probably sit nice and tall, but you're still relaxed so that you can use your technique to play the horn, in this case the instrument, in the best way possible. So keep that in mind. Dr. Eychaner likes this idea of bringing our hands up from the sides. I told my conducting kids to just kind of be at a rest position and then bring your hands up and get ready to conduct, rather than just walking out there and doing this. So it's kind of a nice way to start, kind of relaxing. But try to build this awareness from the very beginning of just being aware of your tension in the wrist, tension in the shoulder, in the legs. It could be anywhere, but we just want to conduct devoid of any of that. Of course, using mirrors and watching video is a great way to lock this in, because when you start sticking a foot forward or whatever it is, you'll see it. And so it may be painful to watch, but it's a great idea to monitor yourself in that way. Okay, do not lift the arms with the shoulders. So in other words, when you bring the arms up, we don't want to see this. I mean, I can just feel that tension right there. So I just want to relax and make sure that all goes away. Make sure nice and loose. Okay, the arms and the hands. Another quote from the book, establishing good habits must be the highest priority. And that's really all of our lives, right? Whether it's hygiene or playing an instrument or sleeping habits, so that's just a great quote. The ictus should be at the navel. So whenever we give a downbeat, the ictus should pretty well be right about that navel place. Again, everybody's body is a little bit different. But, and of course we can practice those extremes. So if we did this, that would be the exception, never the rule. And the same thing, if there was like a big gesture for really low instruments like tubas and brass or something, we might go like this. But generally speaking, that ictus needs to be right about the belly button or the navel. Okay, palm position and fingers. Palms generally down. It's okay if the palm turns to the side or even 45 degrees. But what we don't want to have happen is if that's moving around all the time. So for instance, if we turn this way and then we flip over and then that's a little bit distracting. There needs to be a musical reason why we might make one of those changes. But generally speaking, if you're going to use the teacup or the picking up the glass type thing, then just start with that and do your 4 pattern, for instance, and keep it there. If you want to do palm down, then fine. But just be aware of what you're doing. So much of this is just about building an awareness. Okay, and your digits, your fingers, you want to have lightly touching. Some kids, they have the straight, almost the mummy type thing, and that's tension, and that affects all the way up my arm. I can feel that. So we just really want to work for relaxation, particularly in a legato pattern, and we don't want to call any attention to the fingers. Of course, we want to avoid the old teacup pinky, particularly with batons, which we'll get to later. People tend to have this, I can't even do it. They'll conduct and the pinky's sticking out. You'll see it, but we want to avoid that. Just wrap the fingers around the baton when you use one, and even with your hand. If all the digits are fairly close together, then the eyes of the ensemble can pinpoint exactly what they need to look at, and it makes watching the conductor, and once again, maximizes clarity. But it makes watching the conductor much easier. Okay, armpit space. A lot of young conductors will conduct with this, and the pattern looks pretty good, but there's no space in here. Generally speaking, when you bring those arms up, we want to create, just so we have some room to work with. Even if I use my left hand, I've trained myself to where I need to have a little bit of space in here. So it gives me some more room to work with. And if you notice, it almost looks like I bring the hands out. I'm not talking about this. But it just sort of gives it a spatial quality, which we're after. All right? And finally, even though we're not ready to talk about articulation, typically staccato articulations will be a little bit higher if we're trying to show a lightness or a bounciness to it. And that's okay as long as it's the exception. And then of course the marcato will be a little bit lower, generally speaking. So there will be some variation, but by and large, if we train ourselves to have that ictus right in the mid to low position, then the singers or the band players or the orchestra players, they know where to watch, especially the ones that are, far away. Okay, conducting patterns. Although a prep is a prep, I'm going to go ahead and put this back now because we've done talking about the posture and the foot position. Everyone's conducting will be unique, as we said before, because of different body types, length of arms. Everyone's body is just different. So we need to make sure we learn the patterns before we start breaking the rules. We don't want to get to the music too quickly. Having said that, the opposite can be a problem too. If everything we do early on is so pattern driven, then when it's time to make music, we're just shackled because we're just stuck in the mechanics. So just be aware of trying to find that midpoint. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so let's talk about beat one. So we should do these beat patterns in order. So conducting a one, I like to think of kind of a triplet feel, or like there's 3 beats in the measure. In other words, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And of course, the hard part about the one is that you're not really, in a sense, there's no rebound. I mean, there is a rebound, but it's not like 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3. You're basically just up and down. But if you can get some wrist flexibility and just be able to be comfortable doing that. 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And I approach all these beat patterns from a legato point of view. So just so you understand where I'm coming from. So in other words, I don't want to see any kind of bounce or any kind of stoppage or wrist click, or I just want to see a really smooth gesture. But there's your one. And by the way, it's very helpful to have a tennis ball where you can just take this tennis ball and either hand. But this motion, and you don't want to throw it too hard, and you don't want to throw it too light, but this motion of the wrist throwing the ball down and then being ready for the ball to come back is really a great practice. Just keep a tennis ball on your coffee table, wherever you may stand around talking, wherever, kitchen counter, what have you. But just take 5 minutes a couple times a day and just practice this motion. And that way when you start conducting, you have this idea of releasing the energy into the ball and then picking it back up again. And if you can, try to keep your posture as well and your foot position intact. I like to do both hands because I do conducting with my left hand as well. I try to be somewhat ambidextrous, and I'm left-handed. So, but anyways, just practice this. It's just a good, you're just simulating the conducting gesture, and then put it away, and then just try some air conducting, and see if it comes to you, if it starts to form itself. All right. Moving on to the 2 pattern, and of course, the release or the point at which the ictus changes directions is called the ictus. That's the term that we'll use all through the quarter about conducting. Any beat, 1, 2, 3, 4, anytime. Cha, 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 ch, 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 ch. Completely out of pattern now, but I'm just showing where that ictus is, regardless of the meter and regardless of the pattern or the beat you're on. So the 2 is typically a backwards J. 1, 2, 1, 2. And again, we're just looking for a nice, smooth pattern that has the travel is well controlled, so everything looks nice and even. 1, 2, and 1, and 2, 1, and 2. No jagged edges, nothing like that. It's just 1, 2, 1, 2. Finally, our 3 pattern, I'm just switching to 2 hands for fun. It's just going to be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. A little more horizontal motion there. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Let's see. And then finally, our 4 pattern is our down, left, right, up, or in, out, however you want to think about it. But of course, it is down, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So practice away. It's your turn.